Good evening. This week, of course, saw the appointment of Michael D. Higgins as Minister for Art, Culture and Broadcasting. So what will he do for those respective subjects? More especially, what will those in those particular areas expect him to do?
The charismatic poet-politician, long accustomed to the road less travelled by, is the man the arts world is now hoping will make all the difference. And as he returned in triumph to his native city last night, the country's first ever Arts and Culture Minister found himself engulfed in the poetry of the street and the adulation of almost all of Galway's arts community.
It's wonderful. You can always rely on the people of Galway anyway for the generous gesture, and it's meant from the heart.
And as they sang his praises and danced on the street, the new minister assured them that he'd be going after some of those Brussels billions to put art and culture at the very centre of Irish life.
There is a popular support for what I am saying, to put imagination and creativity, the arts and culture, at the centre of our lives. I think it would be absolutely absurd, for example, if we talked about getting between 1994 and 1998 £8 billion pounds from Europe, and we didn't have an arts strategy in place that made sure that the arts got their share of it.
And as the party faithful lauded their new local hero in Galway, the country's arts community has this weekend been setting out what it expects from the new minister.
I'd be delighted if Michael D could move towards the figure that was identified as necessary for the arts of £15 million very quickly. I also would like him to introduce some legislation to allow for bar licences in art centres and theatres, to allow them to be self-reliant, to earn their own funds. I'd like him to introduce legislation on blank tape levies, that people could collect funds from the use of tapes around the country. I'd also like him to secure funds from Europe in order to be able to complete the arts infrastructure that the Arts Council has been working on for a long time, to create art centres and theatres around the country, artist studios, certainly in the centre of the country in particular, but also in the northern part of the country.
My major function is to put culture, the arts and the Irish language at the centre of Irish life. Now that requires, if you like, spelling out a clear philosophy of culture within a democracy and a republic, and the place of language in that. And that I'm not saying that language is just an agency of culture. I have responsibility for the Gaeltacht, and the Gaeltacht is, of course, if you like, the bun clock of anything one might say in relation to the language. So I have to establish that, move it centrally to Irish life, and that means recognising creativity.
I'd like him also to try in some way to begin to restore staffing levels in the national institutions. The National Museum, Library and Gallery are seriously understaffed. There are sections of our own heritage that are closed off, and we would like to see those opened. I think that his support for the arts throughout the country is evident, and I would like to see him ensuring that local authorities begin to spend more money on the arts. They haven't been supporting the arts to the degree that we would like. They've been doing well, but not as well as we would like. There are 12 county arts officers. I believe there should be 26 county arts officers. I think there should be art centres in every town of any size in the country to allow people to have access to their own arts, to make their own arts, to be able to see quality art very close to their own lives.
I am stressing the job creation potential of the arts. In an economy like Great Britain, even in more difficult times, I think reports like the Marscoff report showed that employment in the arts as a proportion of total employment was never less than 1.2%. It was more usually around 2% of all employment. So it doesn't make sense, if you like, when you have a whole nation of artistically and creatively bubbling people with not to use this as a great resource for job creation.
Well, I think the most important thing with regard to Television Gaeltacht or Television Gaeilge is to set it up, and to set it up this year, because people have waited for the service long enough. And I think once that is done, it should be seen to be a television service that is both national and regional. In other words, to serve the regional Gaeltachtaí and to serve Irish speakers in the rest of the country. And it should be seen to be a service, because I think most important of all, it must be given enough resources and enough time.
Television Gaeltacht, for example, Television Gaeilge, as it is called in the programme, I would hope that I would be able to put it in place. Ideally within a year, I'd like that. And then I have very definite ideas of the potential of the film industry.
I think the film industry would like to see the implementation of the recommendations in the working party that the Taoiseach set up and that reported to him just before Christmas. Essentially the re-establishment of a film agency for Ireland, which was axed in '87, to provide some development finance and a small proportion of production finance. Some essential improvements in the tax regime, the removal of the cap from RTE's advertising, along with a quota for independent producers' access, and we would be very happy to see the establishment of an Irish language service.